This is a homage beat.
Alex, 2021. How are you today?
I'm great, man. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
No doubt, man. No doubt. This is the Sunday sit-down series. Eddie Ramos. I'm joined with Alex. So, Alex, 2021 has been difficult. I feel like it's been a little bit difficult start.
Crazy.
Right?
Crazy.
I mean, so much going on already, and it's like, okay, let's focus on boxing. So we opened up the year. Ryan Garcia fought. That was a fun fight to watch for fans.
It was.
But today we're not just going to focus on boxing. We're going to focus on your story.
All right, let's do it.
So, Alex, where were you born?
I was born in Miami, Florida, actually. But when I was 3 years old, my mom and dad got divorced and moved back to the farm in Canastota, New York.
Canastota, New York.
Yes.
Wow, that's a big move.
Yes, it's a pretty big move, yeah.
So Canastota, as many of you know, is the home of the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I want to say it opened almost 30 years ago.
Close to it, yeah.
Okay.
Close to it. It wasn't there when I was a kid.
Okay. Wow.
It wasn't there. But we did have Carmen Basilio and Billy Backus.
Yes.
Two
And
fights.
was Backus the nephew of Basilio?
Yes, he was. Yep, he was.
Okay.
He actually fought for a world title. I can't remember if he won
I
or
believe
not.
he won it.
He did win it, but he lost it immediately thereafter.
Okay.
But Carmen Basilio was like a rock star back then, 40s, 50s. He was
Yes.
he was friends with Joe DiMaggio, all the Rat Pack type guys.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch about Carmen Basilio I know that I could tell you that
Yeah.
that's another whole story.
I want to say, yeah, he fought in Rochester, actually, my hometown.
Yep.
And he fought in Syracuse, Buffalo, all the western New York cities. Fought in Madison Square Garden.
Mhm.
He beat Sugar Ray Robinson in Yankee Stadium.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
He was a tough son of a gun.
That was I think he was in middleweight because he fought welterweight and middleweight.
Yep. He was an onion picker. New York, Canastota, where I'm from, is all cow fields,
Yeah.
cornfields, or onions.
Wow.
And it was all muck farms. So a lot of the fighters, a lot of the people that grew up in that area, they would pick onions. That's all they would do. Load them up into carts, load them on the trucks. It was,
Yeah.
It was very tough work.
I read about Basilio. He was a high school dropout, and then he ended up teaching like physical education at Lemoyne College.
Mhm.
So put that in
And then
perspective.
before he died, they had Basilio sausage. They have a sausage company. And it's
Yes.
the best tasting sausage you could ever imagine.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, I just for someone that came from that area to get where he got and went be a world title and then beat Sugar Ray Robinson of all people. He was inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame the year it opened, 1990.
Yeah.
I want to say.
Yep.
And I think he was quoted. They said I've read on him in the history. His nephew winning the world title was more important to him than him winning it.
Yeah.
Goes to show you the character of the
Yeah.
gentleman.
Yeah, Billy Backus, Tony Graziano was his trainer.
Okay.
And Tony Graziano came out one day and saw this kid fighting, and he said, if you want to fight, learn to pick up some goddamn gloves, and taught him how to fight, and that's how he started his career.
Wow.
So
That's
pretty
boxing.
Crazy. Pretty crazy, man.
That is.
People get started.
How it all gets started. It's crazy. So, I'm obviously a Western New York native, you being one as well. Talk to us about your childhood in Canastota growing up.
Like I said, I had a brother that was 3 years younger than me, and played baseball, wrestled, did farm work, basically. We were poor. We were on food stamps, powdered milk. So grew up with a single mom, and she was tough. She was beautiful, smart, but she was tough, and she kept me and my brother straight. And we were kind of fearless in a sense. My
Okay.
grandparents were stern, loved them to death. We lived on a farm. I still have a lot of family up there. But when I was 12 years old, my mom said she's sick of the snow. We're moving back to Florida. So we talked to another landowner who owns some property, and he said, I have an old house down in Florida. So we rented that, came down here, and it was just a totally different world. There were
Right.
streets, there were trains, there was cars, there was all this airplanes. It was just a culture shock for me and my brother. And we struggled at first to meet friends, to meet people. And then we eventually got it going and got into. My brother was a baseball player. My dad was a baseball player, from what I'm told. He's still alive. He remarried not long after my mom and him split up,
Okay.
and he has two other children, two other boys. So he's 4 boys, and all of us played baseball. But I didn't really prefer baseball. I don't know. I kind of got bored. It wasn't high action. It wasn't high paced. My brother played baseball. He was going to go to Florida State to play. He pulled his shoulder, so
Oh, wow.
ended that career.
Okay.
But but that's pretty much it. I got into surfing. Got started doing a lot of surfing, and that's where my photography started. I started doing a lot of underwater stuff and a lot of beach photos of surfers, and I was going to be a world champion one day. I thought I was.
Surfing.
Yep, yep.
Wow.
Come from the farm to the surfboard, but
Now I'm a little surprised. We had talked off camera. You're half. You said Cuban, half Hungarian,
yeah, it's.
and no love for baseball.
They used to call us the Polacks. The whole where we were from was all Polish people, so I thought I was from Poland forever.
Okay.
My mom is very light skinned. My dad was obviously Cuban, full blooded Cuban, and so I got the white boy look, but I've got the a little bit of Hispanic attitude, I guess you could call it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to my boy Lazar Stojadinovic. He's half Serbian, half Dominican,
Oh wow.
and he actually just won his fight. MMA fighter. He's fought Dana White's Contender Series. Done very well for himself, and we wish him the best moving forward. Yeah. He's been on the Sunday Sit Down series.
With a name like that, man, how can you go wrong?
He's got some skills, man. Good dude, good dude. Shout out to Lazar. Just reminding me, obviously, you being half Cuban, half Hungarian.
Yeah.
A lot of good Polish fighters, by the way.
There are. The guy from New York just lost his last fight. I can't remember his name, but
he
got
lost
a
to
following.
a guy. I actually remember Robert. The guy was like from Denmark or Germany. Robert Hanelius or something.
Yeah.
Who's a tough dude.
Yeah.
You're talking about the babyface assassin.
Yes,
I think
yes.
What's his name?
I can't remember, but they all had the Poland shirts and
he fights in New York.
oh man,
he trains,
I was
he
heartbroken. He just had a
trains.
baby. His wife just had a baby. Him and his wife, and he lost his last fight. And man,
And let me tell you, there's a large Polish population in New York City, and they are behind him.
yeah, he'll be back. He's a tough
Yes.
son of a gun.
Yes,
He'll
and
be
we
back.
can't think of his name right now. Adam Konaki.
Kanaki.
There
yes,
it is.
Yes.
Yeah, great guy. He's actually training with Joe Smith.
Oh really?
Joe Smith Jr. has been doing some sparring. I saw that recently. Joe Smith Jr. has a big fight coming up. I want to say on ESPN MGM Grand next month. Joe Smith Jr. is fighting the WBO light heavyweight title.
Nice.
So I know Konaki spars with him. That's something new I've seen recently.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah, a lot going on. We'll focus. Let's get back to your surfing.
Okay,
So as you transition, sorry to cut you off there, as you transitioned from moving to Florida, that's kind of how you got into surfing, into photography.
yeah, I had some friends that were surfing, and we were going to high school, and they were like, "Let's go to the beach. Let's go to the beach." When I got there, it was New Smyrna Beach. You could drive on the beach. The waves were fun, and I just picked up a new hobby, and it was
Wow.
pretty easy for me. So I started surfing and ended up going to Barbados, going to the Bahamas, and then I started getting into video. And I went to Full Sail University. I was working at Publix for a while, 7 years.
Okay.
Quit that, got in a car wreck. I flipped twice in a Volkswagen Rabbit.
Wow.
And they kicked me out of school because I missed too many days after that because I was injured. So I went to Full Sail, went to school for a year, and then when I graduated, started doing video, and I started doing my own surfing show on Sunshine Network, which is now Fox Sports 1, FS1. Used to be called Sunshine Network. So I would pay $700, buy a half an hour time slot, and I would go to all these surfing destinations with all the pro surfers, Kelly Slater, all those type of people.
Oh, wow. I've heard the name,
And,
yeah.
yeah, and we would surf and we would shoot these shows, and I would get sponsored. I'd sell to Ron Johns before they got big, and Hawaiian
Oh, wow.
Tropic. I used to get all this money and stuff to do these surfing shows, so I was
Yeah.
living the life, I thought. But you know how TV is.
Right.
It starts to cost more and more and more, and the gear starts costing more and more and more. But at that point, I was starting to do a lot of underwater photography because I was in the water swimming with fins and shooting the photography and shooting videos of the surfers.
And real quick, no GoPros back then.
No, not at all.
So
oh
how
my
did that
gosh.
work?
Honestly, I bought a hockey helmet at one point, and I rigged an L bracket that I bought at a store here, and I had a little video camera, and I started shooting rodeos. I had the rodeo clowns wearing this helmet, so when the guy would get bucked off and the bull would chase him, you'd get this view of all the action coming right at you. It was crazy. So I rigged that up, and I made this contraption to do underwater photography. So we would buy housings. We would jerry rig all these little cases and stuff just to start getting the underwater footage and stuff. It was, at the time, it was the only way to do it.
Right.
You have to get this contraption, put the camera in, hit record, and then close it up while it was recording, and hopefully you can get enough footage before the battery dies.
Wow.
So that's how it was. But that's how I started my photography career. Was shooting surfing, and that was close to 35 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're literally just putting this stuff together as you went.
You had to, yeah. There was no book.
Wow.
There was no internet then
I
to
struggle
read.
with a GoPro.
I struggled with the GoPro too, to be honest with you. But
That's interesting.
no, at the time there was no internet to see how it was done. The internet wasn't around.
Wow. That's, yeah, you learn as you go, like you said. Shout out to Juan Espino. This is another plug today. We're giving a lot of love to other guys that have been on the Sunday Sit Down series. Juan Espino actually won the Ultimate Fighter at age 38 as a heavyweight.
Wow.
He lives in the Canary Islands. He's a friend of ours at Team La Perla Boxing MMA in San Juan, Puerto Rico. He's a big into surfing.
Nice.
He's 40 years old. He's still out there surfing. So I see a lot of his stuff on social media. He gets out in the...
Well,
and,
I saw some stuff on yours. You have waves right outside the front door.
Yeah, right outside the gym. Gabriel, Angela, big into bodyboarding.
Right.
They're huge into that. Gabriel's kids as well. Yeah, and the waves are right there. I think we have a pretty unique location. A lot of people don't realize you can hear the waves when I interviewed Jose, one of the fighters on the team. You could actually hear the waves
That's pretty
in the
awesome.
background.
That's pretty awesome.
So you got to get out there, man. They're a little rough.
Yeah.
You know, there's other parts of Puerto Rico you can go to.
Right.
They're a little more calm.
Rincon.
Yeah, Rincon.
Big waves.
Yep.
Rincon.
Yep, Rincon. And
that was
then,
Hungarian coming out. Rincon.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, then you have Hobos Beach, which is on the western part of the island, is actually very famous for surfing.
Nice.
Did you ever get a chance to get
I haven't
out?
gone to PR. I've gone, like I said,
Okay.
Barbados, all throughout the Bahamas. I went
Okay.
to Central America. I went to California, steamer lane, really cold water. Never do that again.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're actually planning on a trip with the team, do some community service work in the Bahamas at some point. You might have to join us on that.
Definitely.
That would be fun.
Let's go.
I've never been, so I look forward. I keep plugging people today.
That's
Too
all
many.
right. That's
I was
all
going to say shout out to Amron Sands, a heavyweight, actually. Signed with DeBella.
right.
So we're going to work with him in the future as far as doing community service work in the Bahamas.
That's
So,
awesome. I'd love to do it.
Definitely, man. So, Alex, photojournalism. I mean, that's what you do. You're a professional photojournalist.
Yep.
We talked about your intro into surfing and getting, doing photography that way. How did you span out of that? Did that just turn into you just went from surfing to other sports?
I started doing, well, forgot to mention, back when I was, right before I got into the accident, I started boxing. I was working here in Orlando with
Okay.
Joe Clow and Lou Harris, who recently died. Last year he was murdered. But I did some work with them for about a year, and I wasn't trying to go pro. I was just doing it to do it because I was just staying fit. And ended up getting into the car accident, and then I went to Fort Myers after I went to Full Sail, I ended up moving down to Fort Myers. And when I got the job in Fort Myers, I looked up boxing gyms again, and I found that there was a boxing gym on Winkler Avenue, so I hightailed it over there, and lo and behold, Joe Clow was there, teaching there. And I hadn't seen him in 2 years show up, and he's like, "What the heck are you doing here?" I'm like, "What the heck are you doing here?" So that's where my boxing career started. From that point, I continued with the video, and I worked at a video production company down in Fort Myers, and we were traveling all over the world doing stuff. And little by little, I started taking boxing photos just to friends. It was kind of like what you guys would do with selfies today. It's kind of like that's what I was doing, just to have memories.
Right.
And the photography started getting busier and busier. In 1997, I quit that production company that I worked at and moved back to Orlando. At that point, I opened my own business and started working with some friends that I knew that were producing. Back then, it was VHS videos. We were doing fire rescue. It was called First Do. They were fire rescue, how to extricate people from cars. So the jaws of life, when you would pull people out of cars.
Right.
So Steve Kidd and John Tchaikovsky were two famous authors, and they wanted to start doing video work. So I was doing video work with them, which led into them needing photos for the books that they were doing. So I started taking photos professionally, getting paid at that time. I was doing the videos, but while we were there, I would take the photos as well, and that's how the photo part of it started.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people ask photojournalism, what's the journalistic part? Well, usually a story's written and it comes with photos. You're providing those photos.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And sometimes photojournalists will create their own stories. There won't be a particular assignment, like go get a quote from this person or get something. They'll just go out and they'll make their own stories. They'll see something like a nonprofit that needs some help, and they'll go out and they'll start talking to the nonprofit people and see what they're doing, and on the backside what's getting done, and they'll make their own stories out of that. And that's what a photojournalist is. They take photos of what's happening. But
Right.
it's not a story per se. You can write a caption or two to explain what's going on,
Synopsis.
but hopefully the photos are good enough to tell the story.
Definitely, and the way you said it, shout out to Damon Gonzalez, a friend of ours,
Yep.
who does that often on his social media.
Yeah.
You'll see this. He'll have some great photos, just like you do,
Yep.
and there'll be a synopsis below. But
Yeah.
usually, the story will tell.
Exactly. Yeah. And
The
if you could
photo,
tell
excuse me, will
the
tell the story.
story, if you can just tell the story in one or two sentences, and the photo's strong enough to carry what the objective is, then you've done your job. And Latin Box is doing that pretty well.
Shout out to Damon Latin Box and his sponsor, Empire Pro Tape. You're
Oh
representing that
man,
pretty well.
Empire. Oh, that's a whole nother story.
We'll talk about that, huh?
Yeah.
So as you transition, you're full on. You're full on with the full go. Excuse me, with photojournalism at that point, working with your friends. Where's boxing play into that? Are you continuing to shoot while you're training?
I
How did that?
quit training after the Fort Myers. I pretty much quit. My mom got cancer 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and
Sorry to hear that.
I helped her for 2 years. She was going through really bad stuff. She had a double mastectomy, and then she had bladder cancer. Then she has spread throughout her body, and I watched her decline rapidly. And she told me, take care of yourself. This is your family, and this is what's going to happen possibly to you and your brother. So that was like a wake up call. So I started training, got back into the gym. I have two boys that are 16 and 17 right now, and they're pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But they were third degree, almost third degree. They were second 2 degree black belts, but they were almost third degree black belts, and they just kind of got bored. So we started the boxing venue. Went over to Lopez Boxing Gym. I'd seen Alex Lopez at some of the fights, and he invited us over to the gym. So we just started training, and I kind of set a goal for myself to fight. I hadn't had a fight. I'm not a pro. I'm an amateur, but let me try this Masters thing. So I started training for
Oh, wow.
Gleason's event, the Gleason's gym up in New York, world famous gym.
Yep.
They have a Masters tournament every year, and I'm like, that was my goal. Well, a couple months into training, I started losing weight. I was getting a lot stronger. Sugar Burt had a tournament, national championship for him. He's got a series.
Right.
So I said, what the heck? Let me try this. So trained for that, got down to 167 pounds, and I went to the tournament to fight.
Okay.
Had a walkover, so I made it to the final round, and there was a guy that I think he was 183 pounds. They match you up. There's not a lot of masters to fight. If whoever
Right.
shows up, you kind of put.
And explain what Masters.
I think it's 40 and over.
Okay.
Some states it's 35 and over. Some states it's
Okay.
40 and over. So masters are people that are older, like myself. I'm 52. They try to hook you up with other people with competitive records that are similar to yours. So if you're like 0 to 5, 0 to 5 fights, they
Okay.
try to put you as close as they can,
As far as
age
matching
wise and weight wise.
Right.
So it was a pretty big tournament, but our guy had to come down because he couldn't find anybody to fight. So
that. Okay.
I ended up fighting in that tournament and did really well. I got a belt, won a belt, and everything.
Why didn't you bring the belt today?
That thing is too heavy, man. No.
So you got a belt. That's
I do
awesome.
have a belt. That was amazing.
What weight class did you fight in?
Well, I was 167. He was 183. So I think we came down to 178. We came down to 178. He had a bunch of fights before.
You're pushing cruiserweight.
Whatever. I'll take on anybody. So, anyways, long story short, that was an amazing experience. I found out later the guy that I beat won Gleason's
Oh
this
wow.
year, which really torqued me, man.
That had to irk you.
But I can't fight anymore.
Well, and we'll get into that.
Yeah,
And there's a reason behind that as well.
that's right.
Um,
So that's
and how
what-
many years ago was this when you fought
2 years ago.
in the Sugarbird?
It was 2 years ago I fought.
Oh wow,
Man,
you'd still be going at
I'll
it.
tell you what, all y'all kids and all y'all pros that are able to fight, you have no idea how blessed you are, because I would do anything to get into the ring right now.
Yeah, I think you get that itch too. There's you and when you're around it so much, being that you're a photojournalist, and I think it kind of, I being around boxing my whole life, and we'll talk about the medical condition that you went through recently that kind of has now taken you out of boxing full
Yeah.
time. I know what you mean. I wrestled a little, growing up in upstate New York. That was a big thing, but I had a
yeah.
collapsed lung myself.
Wow.
Spontaneous pneumothorax. I was actually running on the treadmill, and that kind of ended my
Wow.
little short career. That was unfortunate, but so I can relate, and we'll talk about that as we transition now to kind of why your boxing pursuits stopped. What kind of transpired? What's transpired, Alex, in the last year?
So, right before my mom died, I had a cyst on my nose. It was like a little bump, and it was like bigger than a zit, but. So she said, you need to go get that taken, have a look at it, see if it's
Okay.
cancer or not. So I went and they did a sample, and there's like a core sample, and they pulled it out and they said it's non-cancerous, so you're okay. So me being a guy, just forget about it. Well, about a year later, a year after she died, the thing started to grow. So I had like a size of like a raisin growing onto my
Oh,
nose.
wow.
So I went and had a look at it and said, I got to get this taken care of. So the ear, nose, and throat doctor took a look at it and said, normally we can just scoop these out, but this might be growing into the cartilage on your nose, so we want to take a better, closer look. So they sent me for an MRI. So I went in, got the MRI done, and they said, we'll let you know in a day or two what's up. Well, a week went by and hadn't heard anything. So I called the doctor's office. I'm like, this is Alex. What's going on? They said, oh, yeah, the doctor wants to talk to you. You have more than your nose to worry about. We found a brain tumor. I'm like, what? Blew my mind. So went and talked to him, and he said, yeah, you've got it's called a meningioma. It's non-cancerous, thank God, but it's growing at a pretty quick rate.
Rapidly.
So let's take a look at it. So they sent me. So they did the surgery, got rid of the nose thing, sent me to a neurosurgeon who looked at the scans, and he said, there's two things we can do. We can try surgery, or we can try to radiate it, like microwave it. I said, all right. He goes, let me talk to a bunch of colleagues. We have meetings every Friday, so we'll take a group look at it and see what they decide. So he came back and said, yeah, it's too aggressive, it's too big, we're going to have to cut you open. And I said, well, what does that entail? He goes, well, you could die, you could go blind, you can go deaf, just the normal things. I'm like, it was a big deal to me. So
Right.
I kind of
Well, that's
freaked out.
huge.
So I had some jobs I had already, video jobs on contract I had to get taken care of, so I got those done as soon as I could. Went in for surgery. My fiance Tara came down from Connecticut, and the boys were with me, and did about a 6-hour surgery. They said I started bleeding, and I couldn't stop. The bleeding wouldn't stop, so they had to cut the procedure short. So they got about, from what I understand, 70 to 80% of the tumor's gone, but still 20 to 30% remaining.
Wow.
Totally just stopped me in my tracks. I was on a walker for a few weeks. I had to do rehab. Went to a cane. About a month or two later, went to walking sticks. So
Essentially learning, sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
learning how to walk again.
yeah. Well, I had double vision, stuttered, numbness, obviously pain, headaches. Um, Before I went into surgery, I had a twitch, so my nose would just do this all the time.
Oh.
And the neurosurgeon said, "Yeah, we'll get rid of that. We'll take care of that." That pretty much went away for about a year. A few months ago, I started to twitch again. I started grinding my teeth really bad, like enough where I had to go buy mouth guards, and I would go for 3 or 4 days where I would just put a boxing mouth guard in my mouth and I would chew them up, just chew them up. So there's little things that happen. I still have headaches. I still have slurring. I still get dizzy. It's been 15 months and I haven't run more than like 4 blocks. I tried to run a couple times. I can't. I can jog, but if I overdo that for 4 or 5 blocks, dizzy. I'll fall over. Feel like I'm gonna puke. Feel sick.
Wow.
So I can work out at the gym. I've been to Lopez Boxing Gym in Orlando. I've been there for years. I'm not half of as
Well,
strong as what I used to be. I
yeah.
hit the bag. I don't jump rope anymore. I started to jump rope right after, and it's just funny how your imbalance is just crazy.
That's major. And
Yeah.
it goes back to what you said before, that itch, if you could just get back in there and
Oh, I'd love to be able to fight again. I'd love to be able to go to Gleason's and get the
get your
one
belt.
the one belt I want. But I'm just lucky to be alive at this point. I mean, the doctors did what they could do. They told me what would happen. I woke up, like I said, with double vision. The U.S. women's soccer team was playing in the World Cup, and there was 44 players on the screen. 11 for this team, 11 for this team, and then the double
Double.
vision doubled. So I had
Wow.
44 people running. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't even look at it. You get nauseous and ready to go.
And that's life changing. I mean, overnight.
Yeah.
Now, you had a beautiful video montage on YouTube, your story. Talk to me about that. You just started this.
The yoga story or the just the different things I've photographed. Boxing.
We'll talk about both, but your page, your YouTube page that you started
Hmm.
to share your story. Untold, I
Oh
believe
yeah,
it was.
it's called Alex Menendez Untold, and what it is I just sitting home, not working as much as I used to. I have a lot of photos, a ton of photos, millions of photos, and I just started putting together little stories that I remembered. And the reason I did that was because when I had this surgery, I wrote a will out the day before, 2 days before I had to get it notarized because I
Wow.
could have died.
Yeah.
Honest to God. So it made me sit down some more and go through the 80, 90, 100 hard drives I have. Each hard drive has, I would say, 20 or 30,000 photos. And if you've fought in Florida, I pretty much probably shot you at some point. So I just
Hit them
started,
up.
yeah. So I just started going through and just pulling some photos and telling funny stories. I talked about Orlando Cruz, who was the first gay fighter to come out basically.
In boxing.
I talked about the Pulse nightclub shooting. I was in New York actually shooting Ruslan Provodnikov versus
Man, Provodnikov.
Provodnikov, my favorite fighter. He was fighting Lucas Matisse at Turning Stone in upstate New York. The best fight I've ever seen in my life.
Real quick,
Yeah,
Triple G made his American debut there. A lot of people don't know that.
I shot Triple G 3 weeks ago. You didn't know that, but
We know a few people that were there.
yeah, yeah. So, but I was shooting that fight that night, and I was on such a high that I got back to the hotel room, edited my photos for Getty Images, and went to bed. And about 2 hours later, my phone starts ringing. I'm like, who the heck is calling me? And there was a shooting in Orlando at the Pulse nightclub.
Yeah.
44 people died, and I'm in New York. I can't go. I'm sorry. Hung up. 5 minutes later, another phone call. EPA called me. AP called me. I just kept getting phone calls all night, and there was nothing I could do. So there's a little bit about that story in there.
Yeah, that one touches me. I'll grab it. I'll get a tear here. It's tough to talk about that. My cousin was involved with that directly. Was shot. She survived. My cousin's a survivor.
Wow.
So
Amazing.
yeah, that really takes. I remember getting the phone call about 2 a.m. as well, and driving from Tampa over here. Yeah, that takes me to a whole nother place, man.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
Kind of puts life into perspective, like I was just telling you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of goals you have, but you got to settle down and enjoy
some
what you
things-
have and be lucky with what you have.
Some things come out of left field, and you got to be able to adjust.
Yeah.
That was a tough one, man.
But she's okay.
Yeah.
She had friends,
Angelique.
I'm sure. Did she have
Shout out to
friends?
my cousin Angelique, doing very well to this day.
Awesome.
Love her to death, and man, I'm so blessed that she's still here.
That's awesome.
So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's I'll let you continue to talk about
but
that.
But I just talk about women's boxing. It's just a couple of personal stories. I wanted to. I don't know if I want to do a book. I don't know if I want to do a podcast. I don't know what I want to do, but I want my children to remember me, some of the things that I've never told them, or some of the things I've experienced. It might not have anything to do with what they're doing in the future, but it's what I've seen, what I've been lucky enough to see, what I've been lucky enough to endure, and I just want to give them memories. You know, they can show my grandchildren someday. Oh, this was your dad. Check out what he shot Deontay Wilder. He was the bronze bomber. He shot this. He shot that. And it's not bragging. It's personal stories. And I'm like, well, if it's out there, somebody might be interested. You know, one day.
It's awesome, man. I have this book here. It's massive. Howard Schatz. Let's get it on the screen.
I started following Howard Schatz. Started following him about a year ago on Instagram, and he's like a studio photographer in New York City, and he's amazing. He gets all these professional athletes, and he just does like the coolest things with them.
Some of these photos are just. I mean, I'll open up the book.
I'm stealing this book, by the way.
We have just like Tim Bradley here, for instance. If we can see it on camera. Just like you said, the pictures, they share a story, and there's this book, you could be reading it all day. I'm waiting for you to make yours.
I'm going to make...
So all you Florida boxers and all you boxers out there, hit up Alex. We can find you on Instagram. Where?
Instagram is at PhotoAlexM with an F. So it's FOTOALEXM. PhotoAlexM.
Okay.
And that's my main page right now, and that's where you can find me. But I've got a photo. If you go to my website, just alexmenendez.com, there's a pull down that says archive. You can go onto that page, and you can just start searching for different things I've shot. And there's a lot of boxing on there. So if you fought in Florida at some point in the last 10 years, I've probably taken your photo.
Definitely, and pay the man surely, as they say.
Nobody pays boxing photographers anymore. Nobody. Unless you shoot for a promoter, you're not going to get paid.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, man. I can remember back in the day when, promoters would come out and they'd want you to shoot. They want you to shoot their fighters only. That's what the main thing was. And they would use those for the new websites or trading cards type stuff. And the quality of cameras has come along so much that your iPhone takes just as good of photos as my $7,000 professional camera.
Wow.
The problem is it takes great photos, but you still have to have that timing. You know, anybody can shoot a good photo. People can get lucky. I get lucky every now and then. But the industry has just kind of died. The sports money industry has gone kaput. You know, but I don't understand because for some of these promoters, like Matchroom does a great job. Matchroom, Top Rank. Who else we got out there? Golden Boy, Tom Hogan. You got Ed Mulholland shooting for Ed Mulholland. His whole crew is awesome. The Bare Knuckles got Phil Lambert and Evan Zenter.
Okay.
Evan Z. I call him Evan Z. He's a phenomenal
videographer. We're going to talk about Bare Knuckle in a minute, too.
Yeah, but you know, Tom Hogan with Golden Boy. You've got these guys
established
that are there, and they're putting photos, great photos out every week, and those are the big name promoters. Some of these smaller promoters, they're spending money on the ring, they're spending money on the chairs, they're spending money on the commission, spending money on medical, they're spending money on a damn DJ, but they won't pay a photographer. And you got to realize, you're only as good as your last fight. That's what they say. People are going to remember you. So if you're taking screen grabs or you hire some kid that does a corporate headshot for your friend and they want to be a boxing photographer, they're representing you. And it's difficult for me to, I don't want to bitch, pardon that, but it's like there comes a point where if you can spend all this money on all this other stuff, and their comeback is, well, we can get it for free, or we can do screen grabs because 4K is such a great, you really can't. When you come to printing and you come to doing promotional stuff or sending it to a wire service, you need to have top quality footage.
It's a little mind-boggling, like you said, that represents your brand.
Yeah.
You said that, and we talked about that earlier, and it's, off camera, and I don't get it. I mean, at some point, just looking at this book alone and the representation of the fighter and the brand of the fighter to make it grow in today's world.
Yeah.
Pay the man.
Yeah.
So
I can't say it enough, but can I give a shout out to some photographers real quick? Some of my favorite photographers.
Please do.
I'm just going to do a list here, and there's no particular order. And if you guys like the fight game and you like photographers, Al Bello is by far the best boxing photographer there is out there. His name is Al Bello. He shoots for Getty Images. He started with a boxing magazine. I think he went to Ring as well.
Ring magazine.
Al Bello's the bomb. You got Tom Hogan, like I said, Ed Mulholland. You've got Lester Silva. You've got Ed Diller. And then the women, you've got Emily Harney, Marilyn Paulino. Damon's good. Who else? No, I just
so many.
There's a lot, and I know I'm forgetting some people. I apologize, but if you guys are into big time boxing stuff, go that route.
And it's funny we're talking about these great photographers.
Oh,
one last one,
and the best one ever, because he just wrote me a really nice letter.
Yeah.
Neil Liefer, Neilliefer.
Seen the name?
Just Google him. He's done every sport in the world, and he's the bomb.
Okay. And it's funny, growing up, I didn't have cable. Okay, so I'm waiting for the newspaper. I'd buy it on Sundays, and I would cut out the colored photos. And I literally have 10 frames at home, poster of each photo framed, because that picture just told the story, and I wanted to remember it. So I go back now, and I'm literally, like I said, I literally have 10 poster boards full of just colored photos I cut out from a newspaper.
I did that with the Miami Dolphins players.
It was just something I did.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't exist anymore. Unfortunately, we're doing these screen grabs and.
Right. Mentioning the book here that Howard Chatz did. He's not an action photographer. Now there's a difference. There's also portrait photographers.
Okay.
And that book is very well done because it's lit very well. So you've also got the other end of the spectrum is a lot of these big promotional companies will hire, you got Mikey Williams at Top Rank. He's going in with the photographers in the bubble in the hotel room, setting up a background, setting up lights and gels, and he's doing these portraits of different angles, and that's for their website, that's for the promotional posters, that's for the cards. And you have to learn to light. I have a friend up in Tallahassee, Don Juan Moore. He shoots for Florida State. He's freelance, but he does a lot of Florida State stuff. Okay. He does their volleyball team, their basketball team, men's and women's. He does soccer team. And you've got black people, white people, Asian people,
right,
Spanish people, just different skin colors. And he has to light all those differently. You can't use the same lighting setup. Right. So if you want to be a photographer, obviously, if you want to be a boxing photographer, the action part is very, very, you need to do that, but you've also got these other things that you have to shoot.
So still photos. so to say.
Correct.
That would be the opposite.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a lot to learn, man.
There's a lot to it. I have an interest in it. We talked about it off camera, and we'll see.
I'm gonna sell you a camera really cheap, right? Yep.
I gotta afford the camera first just to get started, let alone know how to operate it.
Well, don't
back
be a
to our
boxing
GoPro.
photographer because you won't get paid.
That's all right.
Sorry, man.
You do it because you love it.
Hey, man. Did I say Ed Diller? Ed Diller's in there too. Go ahead.
Okay. Definitely. You know, Alex, it's been truly special to have you share your story. Alex Menendez, professional photojournalist, not just a sports photographer. He's done many things in his life, and it's so good that I'm so happy you're still here after obviously going through what you did, brain surgery. And, you know, I wish you all the best moving forward. I look forward to having your book come out. I'm going to continue to challenge.
I am going to do a book. In fact, what's the name of this studio?
This is the OCC Studios in Orlando. That's where we're located.
Okay.
In regards to that,
because I'm thinking about, I saw a nice area. This is an actual studio, like a photo studio. So I think we should maybe do like a lottery and bring 5 or 6 fighters in, and let's just do a day of playing and doing some of this portrait stuff.
That would be awesome. Contact him. Photo Alex M on Instagram.
Let's do it.
Okay, we can do it in the OCC Studios. I'm so glad you joined us today. Alex Menendez, thank you for sharing your story, inside and outside of the ring, as we say, on the Sunday Sit Down series.
Thanks for having me, and shout out real quick, Lopez Boxing Gym. We got some fighters that are coming up. I hope to see you in another week or two. Okay. Going to be doing some fights around the state of Florida. I'm glad the bubble's starting to loosen up just a little bit.
And what would you like to say to those people out there during these hard times?
Just keep your head up, man. You're not the only one struggling. There's a lot of people struggling, and like I said, be blessed with what you have. Be blessed with what you're given. You guys have a lot of stuff that's so good, and I just, the more good you share in this world, the happier everybody else is, and the more you're going to feel like you want to live and keep everything going. So God bless y'all, and just keep your head up, and thank you for having me.
ቤDefinitely, Alex. I appreciate it. Great message, and thank you again for joining me on the Sunday Sit Down series.
Appreciate it. I'll see you again.
No doubt about it.
See ya.
All right, buddy.